Hey everyone, welcome back to episode 55 of the Path Podcast. I am Jason.
Hey, I'm Derrick.
We are so glad that you have decided to join us on the Path today. So this week we're going to dig into the new series that we started yesterday called The Good Life. That's going to take us over the next few weeks. Looking forward to discussing this with you because I think that as you and I were talking before we started recording here, these are topics that I think that if we have any history in church, we kind of at least know about. Like, you've heard this before. But we have to make the jump from just knowing to actually living. And so, Derrick, for a few minutes, why don't you just let's recap what we talked about yesterday, and then let's dig into what do we do with it?
Yeah, so the whole premise of The Good Life, the whole series, and yesterday was really kind of just a introduction in a way.
Yeah.
Is the idea is that, there is certainly an agenda, call it, it's the world, the enemy, Satan is the ruler of the world, and the ruler of the world's agenda, if you will. And so it's been the same from day one.
Yeah, from the beginning. Yeah.
The agenda has been the same, and that is pursue yourself, pursue everything to advance yourself, live your life for you and you only, and that kind of thing. And when Jesus came, he gave a very different definition of the good life. Yeah. And most of the time he's addressing religious people, which they had bought in to the lies of the enemy as well. This world stage, this world agenda that's just infiltrated our world, and we described it as it's kind of it's a megaphone, right? Constantly shouting out these things: pursue yourself, live your life for you, those kind of things. And Jesus is his agenda is a much more subdued. It's not glamorous. It's not as loud of a megaphone. People don't like to hear it. Yeah, it's not fun to say. And these are things. Yeah, you're right. I think we know these things conceptually. I think we would even say we want to live this way. Yeah. But then the question of it becomes, what am I doing? Am I actually following through to live according to the good life, according to Jesus?
Yeah, knowing about the concept and actually living out the concept is two different things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Rather than falling into the temptations of the world and its agenda. Yeah. So we asked 3 questions. We looked at Mark chapter 8, but just the end. It was really that transition into 9:1. And so we'll look at 10 for the rest of the series. Yeah. Mark chapter 10. But we had to set up what's happening there, where Jesus is kind of lining out his agenda. Well, he begins with that, that famous phrase, hey, if you want to follow me, you got to deny yourself. Yeah. You got to take up your cross, and you got to follow me. And he even says the line, for whoever wants to save his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake is the one who will save it. Yeah. And this, it's this paradoxical language. Jesus a lot of times paints in that kind of language to help us see, the conundrum or the exact opposite of how we ought to live, right? Or what we think we ought to live.
Yeah, I'm reminded of like his words in Sermon on the Mount of, hey, you've heard it said this, but I say this also. Yeah,
absolutely. So Jesus did that all the time in his teaching. Yeah. And if you're not careful, you're like, wait a second, what? Yeah. But if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. And so we asked 3 different questions from the text, just to kind of orient ourselves to what Jesus was saying here and what we need to understand. The first, we said, will we expend our life or will we extend it? And we're taking that from that. If you save your life, you'll lose it. If you lose your life for my sake, you'll save it. Yeah. And so the world says, the megaphone of the world says, I didn't say this as to risk. I was trying not to risk being, a millennial, and which I am, but I was going to say, YOLO,
right.
But that is very much in the vernacular of the megaphone of our world. It says you only live once, so live it up,
right?
Do whatever you want. Chase any pleasure. You only live once. That's the whole premise behind that very infiltrating thought to our culture and to our world.
Right.
That's what the world says. Jesus knows that because it's nothing's really changed. It's the same. The megaphone's only gotten larger. That's it. But the same agenda has been the agenda from day one. Jesus knew that. He's combating that as he's teaching his disciples and the people that are following him, mostly Jewish religious people.
Yeah, you're right there. That started at the beginning. That was the temptation that the devil gives
day one
to Eve. Don't you want to be happy?
Yeah.
Don't you want this fruit?
Don't you want to know everything that God knows?
Yeah.
Because that's what he's holding back from you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same lie. It's the same agenda.
Yeah.
To get us to live our lives for ourselves and not to consider anybody else, not to consider God for sure, but to only expend our lives for ourselves.
Yeah.
Jesus says that's no way to live.
Yeah.
Because when you do that, you'll lose your life. If you think you're saving it, that's how you're going to lose it.
Right.
Expending your life now will cause you to lose your life. And we talked about that. I can't remember if it was in this point or another one, but this idea that whatever we chase, at the end of that road, there's another road to say, let me go get more.
Yeah.
And if I can't get more here, I'll go another route and get more. That's why, people call things like marijuana gateway drugs, because they just lead to harder and heavier drugs or whatever. It's that idea that I can't get enough of the satisfaction I need. I can't get no satisfaction. So I'm going to go to something else. And that's what Jesus is showing, that if you chase after YOLO, you only live once, do whatever you want to. If you chase after the lie of the good life, quotations, according to the world, you will end up losing your life. But he says, I'm giving you a way to extend your life. And he says the way you extend your life is you lose it.
Yeah.
And what he's saying is he's saying, number one, deny yourself. Deny yourself. Take up your cross and follow me. And so when we, and that gives us lasting life. That's how our life lasts. The world's light, for the good life says, expend it.
Yeah. And I think so that's so counterintuitive.
Yeah.
I think. And so, I mean, what Jesus was saying was countercultural in the first century for sure, but that is so countercultural to what we know now. I mean, think about, especially as Americans, let me just ask you this question. How do we combat this? That, I'm an American and I have rights.
Yeah. Yeah.
I deserve this just because I'm a human being. So how do you make that jive with this teaching here?
Well, number one, I would say we do have those freedoms as America, and we're blessed. That's a blessing. So I'm thankful for that. And I don't think it's even wrong to be a part of fighting for those rights. As long as it's looking for the betterment of all people's kind of thing. I think that is very in line with who Jesus is. What happens is that we get to a point where all we think about is me.
Yeah.
I want this for me. I want my freedoms. I want all this, and our vision becomes, what can I do to advance myself or preserve myself or continue my betterment, continue my advancement. That's the thing that is comes into the face of what the gospel teaches us, and what Jesus is saying here is that really the best way to find fulfillment is not to advance yourself; it's to deny yourself and advance others, and advance Jesus, and advance advance the gospel.
Yeah.
So people in Afghanistan today, Christians in Afghanistan, they don't have to wrestle with this question that you just asked me.
Right.
because all their whole life is going to be them denying themselves. They don't have freedoms that they have to wrestle with. They can't express freedom of religion even. I mean, they do, they're dying or they're being persecuted. This is a very Western question. That even Jesus in his day, that's not the culture of the day, was, this, you have freedoms, whatever. Paul understood that a little bit just because of his Roman citizenry, his dual citizenry with Rome. So, but you gauge it by, and what I'm pursuing, is it strictly to advance me and my agenda and my betterment and advancement, or is there a countercultural thing that Jesus portrays that I should be living instead? So, for instance, there are only two things that are sure in our world, right? Death and taxes. So we are going to pay taxes. Now, I don't think it's wrong to say, hold up, y'all taking too much. And through legal systems, through contacting your representatives and those kind of things, to make to express your disdain with that or whatever. But what does Scripture say? Well, Jesus was faced with paying taxes himself. In fact, the temple guard, said, hey, or the tax collector comes and says, hey, I notice you guys, you're following each other, and they're trying to catch Jesus. Have you paid your tax or whatever? And so he says, hey, show me the coin, and whose likeness is on the coin. And all that to say, Jesus says, render unto Caesar's what is Caesar's, and render unto God what is God's. And that's Jesus. That's how Jesus answered the question. Do we want to pay taxes? No. But at the end of the day, we will. And so, as Christians and citizens of heaven, we got to pay the tax while we're in exile. And I think that applies to other things too. Don't think it's wrong to fight for your rights, and to make your disdain known. But if you are trying to advance your agenda, your kingdom, that's where the faults are. Romans 13 says that we should respect the people in leadership over us, that God had allowed them to be there. He placed them there even. Right. And so, that's how we wrestle through that.
Sure. Well, then let's dig in a little further. Then what does that look like then, practically speaking, to deny myself?
Right.
What is that like on a Tuesday at 11:30 a.m.? What does that look like to deny myself and follow after Christ?
I think it's something very easy. I woke up this morning and did I want to open up the Bible app on my phone and read my scripture and spend some time in praying? I mean, if I'm honest, no. I didn't. It's not the first thing that crossed my mind.
Sure.
Being addicted to notifications and making sure I know everything that's available to me and what I've got to do, and that I'm checking my calendar, I'm checking my email, I'm checking to see if I have any notifications from Facebook. That's where my mind goes first. And so this morning, in a very simple way, though it was not the first desire of my heart, I took a moment and said, no, I've got to start my day this way. And so I denied myself. It was just a simple little thing. And I said, I need to spend time with the Lord. I need to take up my cross, follow him, deny myself. That's a real simple way. That's something we are all going to contact every day.
Right. And I think that's a great point, because I think that for most of us, if we're being honest, that when we hear deny ourselves, we think, I must live in sackcloth and ashes. And God may call some of us to that. But I think for the vast majority of us, it's something more like that, more along those lines of, let me not indulge my selfishness, but let me turn my thoughts back toward God. And it is as simple as, I'm going to read scripture before I check my Facebook notifications.
Mm-hmm.
That it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And I think that some of us overthink this too much, and we try to be extra Christian in the way that we try to interpret what does it mean to deny myself.
Yeah, and we have to be careful there, because then we tend toward, selfishness in a different way, that somehow I'm depending on my ability.
That's right. Did you see how much I denied myself?
My ability.
Look at how much I denied myself.
To be a good enough Christian. It's like, oh, I read my scripture today. Honestly, it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
I should have read more.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I have to do is acknowledge that this ain't about me.
Yeah.
This life isn't about me. It's not about what I want.
Yeah.
It's not about advancing my agenda. And I like me.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm pretty cool. I would like to advance my agenda. But that's not life.
Right.
Right. And so I've got to deny myself, and I've got to give myself to other things. This morning, this is not as much of a spiritual thing, but it's the same kind of daily simple discipline that is going to deliver a result that we're looking for. Is the same kind of thing we ought to do spiritually. So this morning, Allison and I have been walking every morning for 30 minutes. Not much, but enough just to get our blood flowing and make sure we're trying to stay, as healthy as we can, or get as healthy as we can. So we do that every day. Well, today was raining, so we're not that committed, right? We don't walk in the rain. So I got on my recumbent bike, and I did 30 minutes there. Did I want to do that? No, not a bit. But I know that daily simple discipline is going to pay off in the long run. The same thing is true spiritually. Spiritual disciplines are very similar in a great way to deny ourselves. Are things like reading scripture, spending time in prayer, but not just for religious sake, religious rites and religious rotes, religiously rote kind of things, but because we know that those disciplines will develop a holy habit in our lives of saying, Derrick is denied. I'm living my life for Jesus.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, man. It's kind of easy because I've lived enough life to know that Derrick has no idea how to get through this life on his own, in his own strength and his own power.
I would agree with that.
I can do pretty good. Oh, you would agree that Derrick has no idea how to do
absolutely.
that?
Absolutely. I would agree with that.
Yeah, I would too. And so the older I get, the more I realize I can't do this. I need Jesus.
Yeah.
And so it becomes less and less difficult, I think.
Right.
It's hard, though, because that megaphone is louder and louder, telling us you can do it. Pleasure yourself. Seek pleasure. Seek your advancement. Seek all the things that you want. And then the thing is, if that's the first thing I grab, is go and tune into the megaphone.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to believe more and more and more. So I've got to wake up and tune into the Lord's quiet whisper. You know?
Absolutely.
Or I've got to tune into the scripture and say, God, what do you want me to do? How do I live my life for you?
Yeah, and I think you made this point yesterday that when we do that, when we do give in to the megaphone, we always there's no exception to this rule. You're always going to end up wanting more. That whatever it is, the thing that you think that's out there, that I must get myself this in order to be happy. There's always more. You're always going to want more at the end, because you'll get there and go, man, that felt great, but I want to feel better again. And so you keep searching for more, and you just end up indulging yourself into oblivion.
Yeah. So one of the things I said yesterday, and I truly believe this, and I think Jesus is kind of drawing a line, if you will. Well, I know he is not kind of drawing. He definitely draws a line, because he says, hey, if you will deny me before men, I'll deny you before my Father in heaven.
Yeah.
He says, but the one who heeds my word, I will not deny. right? The one that does my word in this adulterous generation. So he's drawing on and saying, you can't have both. And the thing I said yesterday is that we all have to answer these questions.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, like, we can't just know this conceptually and say, yeah, that's a great question. No, you've got to deal with it.
Yeah, you got to answer
You've got to make a decision. And sometimes it's just daily.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's moment by moment to say, nope, today, in this moment, I am denying myself, taking up my cross, I'm following Jesus.
Yeah.
A choice presents itself, a sin, a temptation. We have to make the choice and say, nope, that advances the kingdom and the good life lie of the worldly kingdom. I am going to believe the good life that Jesus portrays, and I'm denying myself and the temptation and the pleasure that would bring me, and I am following the Lord. It's not, and that's harder probably than just making a daily habit of doing it.
Yeah.
But when we make the daily strides, those become easier to avoid. And to use the analogy continuously, that megaphone is only going to get louder and try to distract you. So what we have to do is put on our holy noise canceling headphones. Your favorite brand,
your Holy Beats.
Yeah, your Holy Beats. And listen to what God says. So it's that second point. Will you seek to find your own voice, or will you seek to listen to the voice of the, sometimes if I'm going to do work, like I got to get out all the other distractions, and I got to put in, you got to put in your holy AirPods or your noise canceling. That's a hard word to say.
Maybe nose canceling as well. I don't know. Yeah.
Headphones, so that you can pipe in what you need to hear.
Yeah.
Because the megaphone's never going to stop.
Yeah.
The temptation's always going to come.
That's a great point.
So we have to be intentional to say, I ain't listening to that.
Yeah.
That's like Peter on Mount of Transfiguration. It's like, oh, cool, Jesus in holy white garments, and Elijah's here, Moses is here, and he doesn't just like take it in awe, and that's the classic Peter, right?
Yeah.
Because he's always talking and always getting himself in trouble.
Gotta say something.
And we all know people like that. So, here he is, and he just like, well, hey, we're going to make a tent for you, for you, for you. And it's like, he just wouldn't hush up, and God had to shake him and say, so a cloud comes, it's not like a fluffy cloud. It's like, thunder cloud, and, God in thunderous voice says, hush.
Yeah.
This is my son in whom I will please. Listen to him. Listen to his voice.
Yeah.
So we have to do that. Otherwise, God will shake us and get our attention.
Right. We
have to do that daily and intentionally pipe in following him, his words, listening to him. We have to intentionally pipe that into our lives so that we can follow him and know how to follow him and cancel out everything else that's being said to us.
Yeah. It's a great point. I think one of the things that is so glorious to me is that God, in his grace and mercy, will get our attention. The Jason Standard Version translation of this is, God says, dude, shut up. Like, do you not see what's going on here? Listen to him. Stop talking.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that we all need to hear from time to time, because you're right that there are some people who like to talk a lot more than others, but we all talk to ourselves in that way. And so I think it's good for us to hear, hey, be quiet.
Yeah.
Stop talking and listen to the Lord.
Well, and that's of course I've learned a lot about this lately, but that's why we are being intentional on Wednesday nights. Not just to get there and talk to God and say, God will do this, God do that. We spend awkward time.
Yeah.
In silence.
Yeah.
I've begun to practice this in my own life more. Because I always go in prayer and I never know what to say, but I'll just keep on talking.
Sure.
And then what I've done is just be still, cancel out the noise, and just say, Lord, I'm your servant, speak. And just be quiet for a minute. Man, I've heard God speak more loudly in those moments than other times in my life. And so, I think we have to put that into practice too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to be quiet.
Yeah.
Be still and say, Lord, here I am. I need to hear from you.
Yeah.
And be quiet.
Yeah.
Shut it up.
Right.
And say, I'm not moving from here till I hear from you.
Yeah. Yeah, because I know I'm guilty of going, God, I just want to hear your voice today. So here's what I need you to do for me. And we're so guilty of that. And we don't like silence. We don't like the awkwardness of it. But God speaks in those moments for sure. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we don't ever give room. We don't ever give room. We don't give room for that. It's like in a marriage, if I'm always talking to Allison and talking over her and never listening to her, I'm not going to have a very good relationship with her.
Yeah.
It's just going to get hard to deal with.
Yeah.
So just like in our own relationships, we have to practice not only speaking but listening and communicating. We have to do the same with God. And most of the time, my prayers in my life have been, I need this, God do that, I need you, do all these things, which are certainly acknowledging who he is, but very little waiting and listening to see what he has to say.
Right.
Just like we wouldn't have a very good relationship with our spouse or anybody if that's the only way we carried on conversations.
Yeah.
Why do we expect to have
why would
the
it be any
dynamic
different?
relationship with the Lord that we could have if we would just be quiet?
Yeah.
And say, God, I'm not moving here, and I want to hear from you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk anymore, because what I have to say is minuscule compared to what I want to hear from you.
Yeah, no doubt.
And it's not, it's not hard, but it's not easy either.
Yeah.
You have to be intentional about making yourself be quiet.
Yeah.
And drowning out all the other noise too.
Yeah. That's definitely
so
true.
I get in the dark. I close doors. I mean, it's just because, and I set aside time. And I don't do it enough. It's not like I do it every day. I don't want anybody assuming, oh, he must be so holy, or because when you find out, it's not that I have to. I just have to.
Yeah.
And so I will, but I don't do it as often as I should. So.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, thank you, Derrick, for helping us think through that. So over the next few weeks, we're going to kind of dig in. This is sort of like that broad overview of what the good life is. And in subsequent weeks, we're going to look in how that affects specific areas of our lives, of how, the good life deals with family relationships, with money in our lives, with other things. And so we're going to look at how all of those things work and dig into those. And we see all of that in Mark chapter 10. So I would encourage you, go ahead and read through Mark chapter 10. See what Jesus has to say there. Be prepared to kind of think through some of those things.
We're going to look at pleasure versus self-control, fortune versus generosity, and fame versus service. And that's all in the text.
Yeah, it's all there.
We're
in Mark
just
10.
digging it out and exposing what God already has there for us to see. And,
I'm looking forward to it.
It's stuff we all certainly deal with, for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt. So, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this whole idea of the good life versus the good life? Is what we talked about this week, and how have you noticed that affects the way that you think about Scripture or about our Creator? We'd love to hear from you. You can email us at thepath@lafayettefirst.life, or you can comment on this YouTube video or on the podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Take a moment, if you wouldn't mind, and share this podcast with other people so that they can be involved with it as well. But until next time, I am Jason.
I'm Derrick.
And we hope that you will join us next time as we continue down the path.